computer.
Hello again, Jessica.
Hi,
I'm
Debbie.
I'm Debbie Mann from Turn the Page LLC, here with Jessica Bush from Tutor Doctor, again talking about how to help these families navigate mental health and education.
Hi,
So,
everyone.
yeah, so today I thought maybe we would start a discussion about, I guess, thinking about the level of support students need. You and I were talking offline a little bit about it's so different case by case, and even now, what we would expect and anticipate kids needing post-COVID versus before COVID. So I'm seeing, some seventh graders who could just kind of fly at it alone, and parents had to check in very little on their student portals and their homeworks. And then I'm seeing freshmen in college where parents' involvement is so needed because, it just seems like these kids' brains didn't develop, that executive functioning, that prefrontal cortex,
Yep.
and they really need help strategizing and planning. What are you seeing?
Yeah, and everybody's in a different place. Like what you said about seventh graders. I've seen some seventh graders recently who just can't finish assignments, so I think not assuming one way or another, that your kid has it, that they've got this almost. Because when you really take a deep dive look into their grade portals, you see that incomplete assignment, partially done, lost credit, blah, blah, blah. And why is that happening? So giving them the support that they need to be able to try to manage it on their own, but also, try to be free from judgment, which is really difficult to do as a parent. I know, but yeah, that's what I see is incomplete assignments, not handing things in, trying to rush through things and just get it done. Just get it done.
I agree. And some of the phrases that I hear are, well, your sibling did it, so you should be able to do it too, or I was able to do this. I think one thing that's really important for us to keep in mind here in 2022 is that our kids are, whatever age, if they were alive just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, their brains did not develop the same skill set that other kids did.
That's right.
So that, in adolescence, particularly, I think about with, the brain is developing, strategizing, planning, thinking ahead. And if they didn't have to, if they were, COVID educating on computers and Zooms and laying in bed and teachers really accepting less than par work and
Cameras off, not knowing what's going on their phones.
yeah, sharing information with friends so they don't really have to study or do the work, then their brain didn't develop this. So we're still, so it's like almost like a delayed development in these skills that we would have seen earlier on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you said about college, I think is very true. And that's another thing, especially last year, transitioning this year, not as much, but especially last year, or with the freshmen this year. They're not necessarily ready for the executive function part of college.
Right.
And I've had kids in junior and senior years say to me, "Oh, it's so much easier in college." And I said, what makes you think it's easier?
Right.
Because they think that because they have more time, it's going to be easier to manage their time. But I said to them, and remember one thing, you don't have your parents there standing over you saying, you didn't study. When's your test? You don't have anybody, and if you have to manage it all on your own when you're transitioning into college.
Yeah, I think you raised some good points. So, that all those independent skills too, it's not just about the classrooms, but it's also about how do I manage myself? How do I make sure I'm fed? I'm sleeping enough. I have all the nutrition I need, everything that kind of goes into being a good student and a healthy human being. And I think that typically in high school, there's this gradual progression of independence. But, I do think that the pandemic kind of messed that up in some way and delayed things. I had kids flip-flopping their sleep and, now they're starting studying at midnight, sleeping during the day, just a mess. So I do think, yeah, those life skills are even a little delayed in how they're learning them, and what's happening for families. And families are stressed, you know?
Very, and with the little ones, I've had calls recently from like second graders, and think
Mhm.
about that. They literally never had circle time.
Right,
They never had sitting there and learning the basic like behavioral stuff of how to behave in a classroom. And
right.
parents are telling me that the kids just cannot sit still, and it's a behavioral craziness.
Yeah,
And it's because if you think about it, you know, they missed kindergarten, they missed the whole initial social, and if they never went to preschool, or if they were home until they go to kindergarten with they never had that basic social interaction.
right, right, right. Yeah, so I mean, I always recommend to parents, assess each child you have where they're at, not where they should be, not what your ideal is, not where you'd like. Where are they really? How are they functioning compared to maybe their peers, but compared to developmentally where we would expect them? Are they developing socially? Are they developing planning strategy and those executive functions? Are they, developing in terms of their independence from you? Really just assessing each kid and each kid's needs and individualizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And not, like you said before, not connecting it to how we were as parent kids, or not
Mhm,
connecting it to how we reacted to certain things, or
mhm.
how your older sibling even their older sibling reacted to something, because they've gone through a time like no other, that nobody
Yep.
else has gone through in their time. And everybody developmentally, depending on their age and how they handled COVID, and is in a different place.
And I would argue they're still going through it, right? So I had one
Yeah.
client, his first week of school, the school shut down, went virtual because of
Really?
COVID. My own college kid, his coach has COVID, so it's still happening. It's still
Yes.
like this, oh my goodness, what do we have to do? COVID
Yes, my
hit.
daughter too, her whole house had
Mhm,
COVID the second week of school. And luckily the college was just put them virtual, luckily
mhm.
they had it all set up. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, how many beginnings of school years can we start virtual? These kids, the client I have is young, seventh grade. So it's hard to think about all that. So I would say for parents, really assess your own child's needs. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't worry about what their siblings did or didn't do. But really, what does your child need? And you'll know that when you look at their student portals and you see
portals,
where
yeah,
their grades are at. You talk to their teachers. If things are going smoothly, maybe you back up and don't have to do it as frequently. If they're not going
right.
smoothly, maybe strategizing and planning and figuring out how to help them. Um, and I really don't see it as a punishment, punitive thing at this point. For the typical kid, of course, we do have those kids that have some of the other oppositional behaviors, but for the typical kid, really figuring out a plan, I think, is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tutoring, right, Jessica?
If they need supplemental education,
Yeah.
then, there are so many gaps. And what, another thing that I see that's really interesting is, that ties in, is, parents are really trying to back off and help their kids alleviate stress, but a lot of the kids are putting it on themselves.
Mhm.
And they're having little social groups where they talk about their grades and their scores. And
I
it
know.
just adds, they have such almost like a perfectionism thing and
Mhm.
what I'm seeing is the parents are really trying to have them relax about it, but they're already on their own, in their own mind, in their own way, wanting to be the top and the best.
Yep, yep. I totally see that too. And
Yeah.
then, we talk to adults about work-life balance, but talking to these kids in these schools about it is so important too. Kids like skipping lunch every day to do tutoring or to do labs or to do, what are we teaching them in terms of how to take care of themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, great speaking with you
Yes,
today.
as always. And if anyone has any specific topics or questions, or how to deal with certain things, just let us know. We're here.
Absolutely.
We're here for you. Thanks,
Yep.
Debbie. Always great to talk to you.
Always great.
Take care. Bye, everyone. Hold on.